is the Emotion Connection, where you'll experience health through feeling. Explore emotion from a different perspective and learn to use your emotions to improve your day-to-day life. Introducing your host, speaker, author, mentor, and creator of Emotional Strength, Sharon Faye. Sharon heads up a successful business empowering leaders to bring about organizational development and cultural change. Get your senses ready as we delve into the many facets of emotion together. Over to Sharon.
Hello, I'm Sharon Faye. Emotion is my thing. Today's podcast I've called Serendipity, Feeling by Accident. And the structure of the podcast today is a bit about my story and how did emotional strength develop and what is emotional strength and how can emotional strength improve your experience of daily life. I thought it appropriate to share a bit of my story today because it relates to my birthday month. And as a child, June was always fraught with danger, and here's why. Life was difficult for me as a child because nothing made sense. It didn't make sense to me that the person who was meant to be my protector, my mother, was also my abuser. I can't remember a time when I felt safe. My birthday was particularly dangerous as my mother spent the whole month of my birthday violently drunk. It wasn't much safer at school. High school was dangerous for me as teachers would throw pieces of chalk at my temple. They must have had a lot of practice because they were really good shots. I remember sitting in class and all of a sudden feeling a massive hit at the back of my head with a large blackboard duster thrown at me from across the classroom. Some days the blow would leave an egg on my skull. How can a child learn under these circumstances? The only way that I could make sense of the world was to feel. The paradox is that I felt stronger when I was in my body, moving towards the pain. At least I knew what was going on. I had some data. When I numbed the pain, I felt weak. And when I felt the pain, I felt strong. It's amazing paradox. It was an accident to discover that when I was feeling, life felt easier. I believe these experiences as a child were the beginning of the concept I've called emotional strength. Although it's easy to get distracted from feeling, and I do that today as well. I noticed that when I was out of my body and numbing, life seemed harder. And from a scientific perspective, of course, there'll be a lot more going on than how I'm explaining it now. And that's where the Emotion Research Institute comes into play, to conduct the science of emotion so we can discover the complexities underlying these experiences. And when I say feeling, I'm not referring to feelings. And when I talk about emotion, I'm not referring to emotions. And you'll notice that I don't put the S on feeling or emotion because it gives these terms a different meaning. It's pretty common to judge your emotion as unreliable or to collect evidence that you've trusted your emotion in the past and it's let you down. It's a common experience for people. Furthermore, you might hear people say, "Oh, she's so emotional." And this terminology is usually used as a criticism. When someone is judged as emotional, it implies that the person cries easily or makes a big deal out of nothing. This is not what I'm referring to when I talk about emotional strength. So how did emotional strength develop? When I reflect on my arduous journey from adversity, I realised that when I was feeling, I felt safe, and when I was numbing, I felt unsafe. That's an accidental feeling, that's why I've called it serendipity. Vulnerability came naturally to me. As a child, I looked vulnerable, and that may have been judged as looking like a victim to the outside world. But inside, I felt capable and strong. Even though I was plagued with self-doubt and low self-esteem, I had a sense that I could deal with anything that came my way. I was strong. This is the inside-outside paradox. And what I mean by the inside-outside paradox is I'm referring to the feeling inside does not project to the outside world if you are connected. So, for instance, if you're feeling anxious in your body, You may feel your heart beating faster, or you may notice you speak faster. When you notice this, you connect to the anxiety, and then you will hear people say, "Oh, you look so great today. I love that colour on you." Or, "Nice haircut." But actually you feel anxious inside, but outside no one notices. From a very young age, I played the role of looking after my mother and sister. In the quiet of the night, when all the alcohol was gone and the violence stopped, I cleaned up the bloody mess and checked the doors and checked that they were locked before I went to bed. I could only sleep an hour or so at a time just in case there was trouble. I lived on high alert. The next morning I would wake up to the sound of my mother vomiting. When I asked her about it, she would say, "Oh, it's just nerves," even though it was clear she was a serious alcoholic. I became a carer early in life. By the time I was 14 years old, I became a street kid and teenage alcoholic. My education was severely interrupted and I was virtually illiterate until I took lessons at my children's primary school in the 1980s. The goal of these lessons was aimed at bringing parents up to date with the latest methodology so that they could help their children with their homework, especially math. Little did anyone know that I was learning this material for the first time. I diligently attended every parent homework class. Later in life, I enrolled in TAFE, which assisted me to find out where my educational gaps were. And we traced it back to I stopped learning in year 4, primary school. And I worked hard to fill in those gaps. And I remember learning long division when I was in my 40s. It's very difficult. People have asked me along the way how I survived such abuse and how I educated myself with such handicaps. I put it down to emotional strength, which I define as the ability to respond in an open and vulnerable way in the face of intense emotional experience. And then from that point, when we're open and vulnerable, you're feeling deeper into the emotion, then that gives you access to your unconscious resources that drives action. So what is emotional strength? Well, to me, emotional strength involves, the first thing is a major shift in your perception. Because right now, as you're listening to me, you have a rigid mindset, a way you think and the way you behave is just the way the world is. You don't even consider that your experience right now could be different. And a lot of people focus on the outside world. And when I was interested in this a few years ago, I discovered that when we're looking out of our eyes, we are looking to the external world, the outside world. We can't look inside. So that's why our focus is on the outside world. And people talk about other people's lives. They gossip. They spend much of their lives watching TV. They seem more interested in other people than they are in themselves. And the shift in perception requires a change in focus from the external world to learning about your internal world. These two worlds are very different. This is the opposite to what we're taught, of course. And you might hear people say that the problem with the world is that people are selfish and self-centred or individualistic. You may hear that we need to become more group-focused, like the old adage, there's no I in team. Well, I experience the opposite to that. When you're preoccupied with other people, you tend to blame others for your problems and you don't realise that you're not taking responsibility for your own actions. It's easier to blame someone else rather than take responsibility for yourself. When you choose to practice emotional strength, you're not blaming yourself or anyone else. You step right out of that blame game. And from this perspective, the emphasis is on responsibility in terms of the ability to respond. A person who is building emotional strength experiences each emotion as it's felt. And it's not necessary to accept or embrace anything. It's really acknowledging the experience and feeling it. And once you can acknowledge, feel and respond, I call it AFR, your decision making becomes faster. You don't do the pros and cons and sit on the fence for too long. The focus on feeling the emotion is the internal experience, and it's not necessary to express anything. No one else knows what you're feeling, and if you're not speaking about it, then it's private to you. You are feeling the emotion or the sensation inside yourself. When you are feeling each moment, the emotion dissipates quickly. When you feel bad, you hear that a lot. Bad's not a feeling, but people say, oh, I feel bad. Well, they might mean sad, they might mean anxious, they might mean lots of things, but that's the language we use, shortcutting things when we feel bad. It indicates that you're suffering rather than feeling. You tend to suffer when you are judging your emotion. So we've been taught that negative emotion is not good and positive emotion is good. That's a myth, that's not true, and we need to break the habits of thinking like that. You may think you're feeling when you're actually suffering. And suffering, you can tell, because suffering lasts longer than feeling. And we've all suffered for far too long, we've all suffered too much. So one day I became fed up with suffering. No more. I noticed that when I was feeling my body, the suffering reduced. A lot of the examples I use is around sadness because I feel sad most of the time. And because my starting gate is sadness, it doesn't mean to say I'm not happy. For example, when I feel sad, I connect to the sad. When I feel hurt, I connect to the aching feeling in my chest. And when I catch myself judging, I connect to the judgment. So how can emotional strength assist you in your life? And I've trained many leaders, business owners and others to build emotional strength for 30 years with amazing success, and it really does work. The effort required is worth it. You can get started by making the decision to open to different perspectives and to begin to implement it into your life. It takes a level of curiosity to step out of your comfort zone. Stepping out of your comfort zone may feel uncomfortable at first. You might be curious to build capacity for discomfort. There are many examples of facing your discomfort. For example, you might feel uncomfortable when you realise you are a controlling manager. The fear is that you might be faced with some feedback that you actually don't like, so you rather stay in denial. However, you can't stay that way indefinitely because you have a bigger problem in that you can't retain staff or you're looking at that revolving door. Most employees will not step up and confront their boss because the boss has the power to hire and fire. Instead, they may vote with their feet. If they don't quit their job, they will still not speak up, and then you have the background gossip starting. So we don't want that backroom gossip because that causes a lot more serious problems later. So before you know it, you've inadvertently created a toxic culture in your business, and the people issues will continue to get worse. So you are motivated to change. The first step is for the controlling boss to make the decision to come back into his or her body. The intent is to build a muscle to feel discomfort. The boss may feel tremendous discomfort facing the controlling attitude towards the staff and the impact that it is having in daily life. When the boss connects, staff feel safer to approach. Employees start to trust the boss and to tell the truth about their experience under his or her watch. In the parenting world, the biggest challenge is acting out, yelling at your kids or using reward and punishment as a methodology. This type of parenting style does not work. I know that from personal experience. In my day, a while back now, parents were encouraged to smack their children under the guise of discipline. That model did not work. Many children were damaged as a result, and it's not worth it. As parents, we need to find another way of providing children with their developmental needs. I've raised 6 children now, and it's chalk and cheese from reward and punishment style to raising children with emotional strength. I will say more about this at another time. It's a very important topic, parenting with emotional strength, and I will do a whole podcast on it because it's extremely important. There's lots of confusion out there about parenting. For now, it's best to make the decision to open up and learn to come back into your body. When you're feeling, you can't hurt yourself or anyone else, and there's a lot less acting out. The challenge to coming back into your body is that it can be painful, and not many people have a capacity to experience emotional or physical pain. When you practice connecting to pain in your body, it's like going to the gym and you build a muscle that enables you to change your relationship to pain. When you stay and feel, you develop a bigger capacity which makes you stronger and more capable of dealing with the challenges in life in a healthy way. When you connect with your internal experiences, such as feeling sensations, discomfort or pain in your body, you have a greater capacity to engage with your world rather than isolate yourself by disconnecting from yourself and everyone else. When you feel difficult emotion, you broaden your choices. When you avoid difficult emotion through defensive responses, you are obliged to repeat the same old patterns. With emotional strength, you can see the world through a different lens and respond in a healthy way. My vision is to teach people to feel, as I believe that this is the missing link to assisting our world to become a better place. When you are in your body and connected to feeling, you cannot hurt yourself or anyone else. The ripple effect can generate a healthy environment wherever you go. To recap, sharing bits of my story on my birthday month gives us a bit of the why of emotional strength. How did it come to be? Emotional strength evolved throughout my life as I recovered from severe childhood abuse. Emotional strength is the ability to respond in an open and vulnerable way in the face of intense emotional experience. And finally, emotional strength can improve your life by providing you a framework for connecting and responding to whatever life presents us. Are you ready to quit the blame game? Your homework this week is to focus on connecting to uncomfortable feelings and sensations in your body. This is challenging, but with the shift in your mindset, you can feel discomfort. Even if it's only for a second, you can feel the discomfort. Just be game enough to feel it in a moment. And this is real feeling. This is not thinking about feeling. I want you to get that distinction too. Feeling rather than thinking about feeling. And as you practice, see if you can stay connected to the discomfort for a little bit longer each time you have a go at it. Practice feeling uncomfortable. Ooh, it's amazing in your body, the uncomfortable feelings in your body. I actually like it, but, I'm a bit of an emotional skydiver, so play a game with yourself. I did this when I'm really challenged and I want to improve. Play a game with yourself to do a personal best. Each time you become aware of discomfort in your body, stay a little bit longer. When you've had enough or the discomfort gets too much, allow yourself to leave. That means when I say leave, I mean go into your head or do other things, just numb out a bit. And then gently come back and have another go. I call this coming and going because that's what we do as humans. We can't just decide to stay in our body indefinitely. We move, we come, we go, we do lots of things. So we've got to get this movement flow happening. So when you feel a little bit uncomfortable, see if you can stay, then you leave. Then don't stay away too long and come back and feel it. Then you can go and then come back. So that's what I want you to practice, coming and going this week. And let me know how you get on. It's exciting to start this process. It's amazing. Feeling your body, feeling the sensations, feeling movement in your body, practicing, talking about it. It's fun. So our next podcast is learning how to feel. See you next time.
Well, that's a wrap. The Emotion Connection is produced by Sharon Faye and her team at sharonfaye.com. With a vision to help people feel, this is just one way we're spreading the word. Sharon Faye is an engaging speaker with a compelling message. Book her for your next conference to ensure a unique and memorable experience for your audience. We encourage you to engage with Sharon through the podcast. You can also email Sharon directly, sharon@sharonfaye.com. We'd love to hear from you. The Emotion Connection, Season 2, hosted by Sharon Faye. Visit sharonfaye.com to learn more or book Sharon for your next event. See you next time.